Good morning, everybody. So I've set myself up here this morning because I'd really like to give you an idea of what you can expect to find in my little run recovery videos. So I've announced this week that I have created a Strava community, a Fit Tribe club within Strava that you can now join. And the intention of doing that is hopefully so that you guys will join me in posting regular run entries. I know a lot of my current clients have got running goals, whether that be to start running for the first time ever, or whether it be that they are newly postnatal and therefore have extra considerations and factors to think about in terms of returning to running or starting running. A lot of women tend to start running once they've had children, and it's harder to kind of commit to specific times to train. So going to gym classes or things like that, if that doesn't work for people and people want the headspace, often women will start running at that time in their lives. And actually that's a time when you need to be particularly careful about how you approach returning to running. So there will be more entries from me with regards to that. These videos will be suitable pretty much for everybody. At the end of the day, you know your body. These are gentle stretching, mobility, movement sessions, and I will often have a focus on something specific. So today I'm going to do a lot of hips and piriformis. So, you know, the muscles, the biggest muscle in the body is your glute, so your bum, and it is the powerhouse of your body. And when you're running, you're using that, amongst other things, an awful lot, and you can find that your hips, your glutes can get really quite tight and uncomfortable. So I will be going through some of those stretches today, but some days it might be to do with more chest opening or neck or back or hamstrings that day, or tight calves and soleus, and a lot of those things might not mean anything to you. You might not know what muscles I'm talking about, but that's what I'm here for. So I'm going to take you through a few little exercises, stretches and movements that I really enjoy. And that feature fairly regularly in my kind of routine to restore. So when I've done the striving and I've done my hard work for the week and I've been to the gym or I've gone and had a run and I want to stretch everything out. So yes, these stretches can be suitable for anybody, but I'm going to be posting regular entries on a Sunday for people that have posted a run or running related activity within the Strava community. So I hope that kind of gives you an introduction and a clear idea of kind of what to expect from me. So first of all, I'm going to start with a 90 degree hip mobility stretch. And this is one of those funny ones that you either get straight away or you don't. It doesn't take a lot of coordination, but funnily, when you start really thinking about where you're placing your body and your alignment in relation to your hips and your knees and your ankles and this, that, and the other, the mind can feel very swamped if you're not familiar with that. So go with me, let's see how you go. And I'm absolutely happy to take any direct inquiries from people. If you feel that you're doing this exercise or any other exercise and you think, oh, I'm not feeling that. I'm not feeling that stretch where she tells me I should be feeling it. Just drop me a line, send me a little video of you performing that stretch, or send me a photo of you in that position, and I will happily have a little look at that and see if I can try and correct any alignment issues or anything else, postural issues, whatever. So to begin with, your 90 hip mobility stretch. Sorry, we'll start this way. It's not a very elegant position, let's face it, but it's where we need to be to have a full plane of range of motion to the left and to the right. And depending on how tight your hips are at the moment, you might find it difficult to follow through a whole range of motion. And just because I might do that, don't worry if you're not. That's the whole point of doing this. Okay, so first of all, you're going to start with a really long straight spine. being aware of tucking the chin ever so slightly so that the spine in the back of the neck is not curved and squished back. Constantly paying attention throughout this to that length in the spine. Okay, so you're going to be in that position. A nice way to kind of straighten up your spine is to just hold just below your knees, the top of your shins, and just wiggle your chest open, spread your chest. Bring your belly button back towards the spine ever so slightly. Tuck the chin slightly, and you can take a couple of breaths here and just send your mind to your spine and almost kind of create that space. And you can do this in line with your breath. So you can breathe in to grow taller and out to relax a bit. Okay, so once you've found a kind of nice, comfortable, long, tall spine position, you can let go here if you feel that you can maintain this. Otherwise, you can put your hands down just behind you to offer you a little bit of support. And the first thing is to drop the knees to one side. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about in terms of range of motion. Some of my clients get this far, and that's fine. So work with what you've got. There's no need to overstrive particularly. Okay, so this is a restoration session. So moving through to the left, and then bringing the legs back to the centre and to the right. Okay, and you might find that on one side, gosh, you've got a great range of motion, and then on the other side you think, wow, that's a lot harder. And it's totally normal to have those kinds of imbalances. Ultimately, you know, that's what your body does. It will always accommodate, and you tend to have a side of preference. For example, you'll be left-handed, right-handed, and you might use that side more. So that's your 90-90 hip mobility stretch. And if you want to be a little bit more dynamic about this stretch, you can start to bring it into a kneel. So instead of leaning your hands back, you can do the stretch more upright. Does take a little bit more core strength and concentration to keep the spine nice and straight. But this means that you can come up into a kneel. And then place yourself back down, legs to the centre, and lift in the other direction. Bring yourself back down and lift. And if you can see, I've still got a long straight back. One of the things that you might find is that people kind of curve like this. So it's just trying to keep the chest open, shoulder blades down the back, tummy lifted, nice and tall. And the same when you're coming back down. Keeping the body tall to lift and keeping the torso long to come back down. Okay? So taking yourself through a few repetitions of those in your own time. I'm going to move on to our next stretch now. And the next stretch is kind of a frog stretch. I think most people will recognise this or know this as a frog stretch, and there's various different versions of this. And all of them work you slightly differently and provide different benefits. So the first thing I want you to do is bring the soles of your feet together, and then just take hold of your shins and open up the chest. So you're going to create a little bit of tension through your hands and the shins to pull your torso nice and upright. Paying attention to your belly button and just bringing that back towards the spine a little. Again, revisiting the chin. Is it all the way up here, creating shortness and tension in that neck space? Or is it ever so slightly tucked, creating length all the way up to the crown of the head? That's what we're looking for. And by bringing that tension into the hands, you're slightly pulling the pelvis forwards as well, and you might find that that exaggerates this stretch in the pelvic region. Okay, and the stretch of the inner thighs, so your adductors, which can become really quite tight. Okay, so you can just take a few breaths in that stretch and just try and relax into the stretch with every exhale. Breathing in and out. Can you push the knees down towards the ground a little bit more? Not necessarily over-striving, but just giving them a little nudge. And wiggling the hip bones forwards maybe a bit more. Bringing your pelvis closer to the backs of your heel, keeping your spine nice and tall and the knees reaching outwards to increase that inner thigh stretch again. Good. And then if you just bring the feet, keep them together but ever so slightly further in front of you to create yourself some space. And then taking the backs of the hands downwards, you're going to feed the hands through and underneath your ankles. Okay, so again, trying to keep a relatively straight, long spine if possible. Ultimately, it will curve a little bit here, but what I'm going to ask you to try and do is lead this stretch from your hips. So rather than curling down now, just with the upper back, what I'd like you to think about is that pulling forward that we've just done in our initial stretch from the hips and creating that and sort of hinging forwards over the feet from the hips. You might not actually get very far, and that's absolutely fine. So bringing yourself into that position and taking a couple of little breaths just to relax there and find a kind of comfortable space. And now just paying attention to how that feels, and then testing the theory of the bent spine, taking the stretch away. So now if you just curve your head and let your upper back curl round and your middle back curl round, you might find that actually all that sort of stretch that you were feeling in your lower back, in your inner thighs, in your piriformis, in your glutes, so in your bottom, is taken away. So straightening the back as much as you can and hinging forward from the hips, keeping the chest a little bit open, just leaning forward again. And if you'd like to take the hands, you can. And you can kind of just again create that little bit of tension, striving to push the knees outwards and bringing yourself down from the hips, keeping the chest lifted so that you feel the benefit of this stretch through your lower back, through your glutes, through the inner thigh, and just settle into that for a minute for a few breaths. And if you want to, you can let the head relax now, bring the chin down more towards your chest, and you might feel a nice little kind of increased stretch in your upper back, in the back of your neck, all the way up into the base of your skull there. You don't need to force this, just by sort of tucking the chin and letting the head relax, you'll probably feel that anyway. Good, okie dokie. So bringing yourself up to sit. And we're going to take a seated piriformis stretch now. So here, now depending on your flexibility, again, in your hips, in the backs of your legs, your hamstrings, your calves, etc., your leg position, your leg placement might look slightly different to mine. Let me turn sideways, I think that might help. So what I'm looking for here is belly button back towards the spine again, not holding your breath and sucking everything in and not taking a breath. You are still able to breathe naturally and comfortably. You're just kind of waking that space up. Okay, setting your mind there, allowing it to support your posture. And then creating that long spine again that we've been talking about, keeping the chin ever so slightly tucked so that you don't lose the space here all the way up to the crown of the head. Bringing the legs together and out straight in front of you. You can have the feet completely relaxed in front of you, that's fine. However, if you want to get the most out of this stretch and enjoy the benefits of the stretch through the backs of the legs as well as in the piriformis in the glute that we're going to really target in a minute, and the spine, you want to really, pull your toes back towards you. So flex the toe, that's the word I was looking for. Okay, so your legs are together, they're nice and straight, you've got a long tall spine, and you're flexing the toes towards you ideally. And then you're going to take one leg, bend the knee, and cross it over the other knee. Okay, So I'm doing this on the right side now. So I'm going to take my left hand and put it on the outside of my right knee. Okay? This alone, if you give it a little pull and put your hand just nice and close to your back, that will help you stay nice and upright. In this position, you'll find that you get a really nice stretch here in your glutes. It's a really, really nice, pleasing stretch. And if that feels good, you can then exaggerate this stretch. You might want to bring your hand a little bit further away from you to begin with, keeping the spine really tall and long, so no curved bodies, not sinking into the belly here. Taking a twist around to the right side. So lots of people that know me will know that I talk about twisting a lot and ensuring that you're doing that in a safe, functional way. And we will have some more entries about that coming up. Good, take a nice deep breath in, and then on your next exhale, you can take another little twist. If you've got the space, and take another little pull on that right knee with the left hand. Good. And then bringing yourself back to your starting position, and you're going to stretch the other side. So bending the leg, crossing the ankle over the knee, taking the right hand to that knee now if you're doing the same side as I am. Okay, making sure you're still sitting up tall. Hand nice and close behind you will support you in this stretch. And giving that knee a little pull to feel the stretch in the glute of the bent leg. Now my straight leg could be flopping about doing whatever here, or you can pay it some attention. Just make sure that you've got the toes flexed towards you, the kneecap is ever so slightly lifted, activating the thigh, and that you're really active in this stretch, okay? And now, on your next exhale, taking a little twist. And then taking an inhale here, and on your exhale, taking that stretch a little bit further if it feels comfortable to do so. Good. I don't know whether you have or not, but a lot of you might felt a few little clicks going on there in the spine. And that is completely normal. Okay. So seated piriformis twist, we've done this one now. What I'm going to get you to do now is just sit up in a comfortable position. It might be that your legs are crossed. This is what's comfortable for me. And you need to be able to sit fairly tall. Okay. So we're going to go into this position if it's comfortable for you. If not, find your own position, it's fine. You could also do this in a really high kneeling position, but it just seems to flow quite nicely into a cross-legged position. So again, bringing the spine, creating some length in the spine again, checking the alignment of your tongue, chin, belly button back towards the spine. And all I'm going to get you to do is drop the head to the left-hand side. Take a breath here. And on your next exhale, just taking a little bit of pressure through the head to increase that stretch here. Now you can exaggerate this stretch with the next breath by really paying attention to this shoulder. You're manually creating a little bit more of a deeper stretch with this hand, but here you can actively really try to push that shoulder down, keeping the shoulder away from your ears. Actively try to push it down, creating even more space in that side of your neck. And just taking a couple of breaths there. Good, and then coming back to the centre, and then taking the head over to the other side. Just revisit your belly now and again. Now and again I notice that mine just wants to kind of relax and hang out, bulge forward a little bit, so just revisit that so it's continuing to support your spine, your lower back. And then do the same with your breath on your next exhale, taking a little bit of extra help from your hand here into that stretch. And on your next exhale, creating even more space here by bringing that shoulder down away from the ear. and noticing that that tends to increase the intensity of that stretch. Good, and then you can take a few little shoulder rolls just to bring some movement back into that space. Good. And then I would like you to just settle into this position, or whatever is a comfortable position. You can do this lying if you want to, but we will be coming up to this kind of position again for our next exercise. So if you're comfortable here, stay here, belly button back towards the spine. Let me turn side on for you. And we're doing the same. We're creating that nice long length in the spine. Okay. And all I'd like you to do now is just pay some attention to that length. Okay. So with every breath, feeling the movement in the spine and that lengthening in the spine. As you breathe in, creating space in between each of the little vertebrae. And as you exhale, that might feel as though it relaxes a little bit. So continue with your breath to continue to keep trying to create some length here, and just being still with that. As you get tired, you might notice this happening. Very easy to do. Or this. Just keep bringing some awareness to your posture. Good. And then last but not least, we're going back to where we started with that kind of hip mobility stretch. Although this time we're going to do a more static, a more still version of that stretch. Okay, so we started with a little bit more activity, and this time we're just going to settle into that stretch a little bit more. So it's called a 90-90 degree stretch. Some people also call it a mermaid stretch. It's entirely up to you. Call it what you want, don't mind. Okay, now if you're like me and you've got a bit of meat on your bones, you've got a bit of a fleshy bottom, you might want to lift that out the way so that you feel that your sitting bones, the bony points of the back of your pelvis, are kind of based down into the ground. And what I'm looking for is this front leg, your hip and your knee to be directly in line. And ideally, your knee and your heel to be in line. And with this back leg, you might find it harder to get that exact 90-90 degree stretch, and you really don't need to overstrive. If it's a little bit further forward, that's absolutely fine. We're just going to pay particular attention to that front leg and trying to just be aware of your sitting bones here, and that you do have a kind of even distribution on the mat so that you're not sort of leant all on one side or all the way back or forwards, that you sort of feel fairly central. So belly button back towards the spine again, nice long straight spine. I know I get a bit repetitive and boring. Chin tucked. And then you can bring your fingertips down to the ground. This is the way that I quite like to do this. And I want you to take a lean forward over the front thigh. So I want you to do that from your hips. So not curling the back down. You will absolutely not feel that stretch at all in your glutes. What I want you to do is hinge from the hips, drive forward from the chest, almost lifting your ribs over that front leg. So hands here, and you're lifting over that front leg, and you might walk your fingertips away from you to bring your chest down, keeping your back nice and flat. Your chest is still lifted, but you're bringing your torso, should I say, down. And you should then begin to feel a really lovely stretch in the glute of the front leg. So settling into that once you feel the stretch. And then you can do exactly as we have done. Every time you take a deep breath in, just sort of acknowledge and feel comfortable in that space. And then with every exhale, you can just bring the torso down a little bit more to increase the stretch. Good. If you have particularly tight glutes and hips, you might be feeling a bit of cramp in that back leg now. So you might want to give it a bit of a rub or a bit of a slap, or completely come out of the stretch if it just feels really uncomfortable. And then bringing yourself back to the center and taking your legs around the other way to complete the stretch on the other side. Balance things out. Again, move any fleshy bits out of the way so that you can feel that you've got a really solid, comfortable seat on the ground. Remembering that hip and knee being in line, your ankle and your knee, or your heel and your knee being in line, belly button in, long straight spine, lifting over that front leg to stretch, keeping a lovely straight back, keeping the belly button lifted, and increasing that stretch with every exhale. If you would like to test the theory now, you can just curl your back, curl your spine, and notice that that stretch is reduced through the glute. So therefore, you know the importance of keeping that lovely long straight spine and driving this forward, lifting the chest over the front leg. Great. And then you can walk yourself back gently, bring yourself back to center. And that's everything that I'm going to go through with you today. I really hope that you found that useful, and some of those stretches I'm aware may feel quite familiar to you. Hopefully you found some of my tips with regards to posture and placement might have helped to improve some of those familiar stretches for you, and perhaps you've learned something new as well that might be able to support you with your recovery sessions. Thank you so much for being here. From the 1st of July, the recovery sessions will be available weekly on a Sunday following your Strava entry on my Fit Tribe members community page on Facebook. So I really hope to be seeing your entries soon and seeing lots of you there. Bye.